Welcome to UBI Unplugged, breaking down the future of income. Today, we're diving deep into universal basic income and how it could reshape our cities. Specifically, we're looking at the potential for community-led development projects, innovative housing initiatives, and the overall role of guaranteed income in creating more equitable urban environments. It's a big topic, but I think a really important one.
Yeah, equitable. That's the word of the day, isn't it? I'm still not convinced about this whole UBI thing, though. Sounds great on paper, but the devil's always in the details, right?
It definitely is. And that's where the policy side comes in. I think UBI is a fascinating idea, but we need to be incredibly careful about how it's implemented. There are so many potential pitfalls.
Exactly. That's why we're here, right? To unpack those pitfalls and see if we can navigate them. I was reading this recent article about a German study, and it was pretty encouraging. It found that UBI didn't stop people from working, and it actually improved their mental health.
Oh, I saw that. But improve mental health. That's kind of a soft metric, isn't it? I mean, what does that even mean practically? Is it just that people are slightly less stressed because they have a bit more money in their pocket?
Well, the study also mentioned increased life satisfaction and a greater feeling of control over their lives. Those are linked to mental health, and that's incredibly important, especially in urban environments where people often feel powerless and overwhelmed.
And it's not just feeling good. These feelings actually translate to better outcomes. Imagine someone struggling with housing instability. That stress alone impacts their ability to find work, care for their family, even just to function day to day. A UBI could be that buffer, that foundation that allows them to stabilize and then actually build a better life.
Okay, I get that in theory, but where's the money coming from? That's always the sticking point. And what about inflation? Wouldn't UBI just drive up prices, making everything more expensive and negating any benefit?
Those are critical questions. Funding mechanisms are a huge challenge. Some propose tax increases, others suggest reallocating existing welfare programs, but those are often politically fraught. And yes, inflation is a real concern. It would require careful monitoring and potential adjustments to the UBI amount over time to maintain its real value.
Absolutely. It's not a magic bullet, and we need to think about the whole economic ecosystem. But the German study also found that recipients saved a significant portion of their UBI, about a third of it, actually. They also increased social spending. That flies in the face of the argument that people will just squander the money.
Saving a third? That quote S.in, interesting. Does this imply that people would prefer to save rather than spend? And if so, wouldn't a system like this stifle economic growth by hindering spending?
That's a good point, Otto. We have to consider the macroeconomic implications, but saving isn't inherently bad. It could lead to increased investment, which fuels long-term growth. The key is to strike a balance.
And think about what that saving means for individuals. It's not just abstract economic growth, it's people having a safety net, being able to handle unexpected expenses, or even starting their own small businesses. In the context of urban renewal, imagine people using UBI savings to invest in their own neighborhoods, creating community gardens, co-working spaces, things like that.
Okay, community gardens are nice, but are we really talking about fundamentally changing urban environments with a few vegetable patches? I mean, we've got huge problems, unaffordable housing, failing infrastructure. UBI seems like a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
I agree that UBI alone won't solve everything, but consider this. With a guaranteed income, people might be able to take on more community leadership roles, participate in local government, advocate for better policies. It empowers them to be active agents of change.
Housing cooperatives, aren't those notoriously difficult to manage? All that collective decision-making sounds like a bureaucratic nightmare.
They can be challenging, yes, but they also offer a sense of community and shared ownership that's often lacking in traditional housing models. And with proper support and training, they can be very successful.
And the beauty of UBI is that it provides that stability, that foundation, so people can take on those challenges, learn those skills, and actually make these community-led projects work. It's not about handouts, it's about empowerment.
I'm still skeptical. What about people who are, let's just say, not the best at managing money? Are we just enabling bad behavior?
That's a valid concern. Financial literacy programs would be essential alongside UBI. We need to equip people with the skills to manage their finances responsibly, and it's not about judging people, it's about providing support.
And honestly, even if some people do make what we might consider bad choices, isn't that their right? We trust people to make decisions about their lives in other areas. Why not with their finances, especially when we're talking about such a basic safety net? Plus, the evidence suggests that most people are incredibly responsible. This German study showed people using the money to save, invest in themselves, and support their communities.
Okay, but what about the long term? This German study only tracked people for 3 years. How can I be sure there aren't any long-term downsides? Maybe people become overly reliant on the UBI and lose their drive over time.
That's a crucial point. Longitudinal studies are essential to understand the long-term effects of UBI. We need to track things like employment rates, health outcomes, and community engagement over decades, not just years.
Agreed. More research is needed, but the initial findings are promising. And think about the alternative. We already have a system where millions are trapped in poverty, struggling to survive, and constantly stressed about basic needs. Is that a better long-term outcome?
Well, no, obviously not. But there has to be a better way than just giving everyone money. What about job training programs or investments in education?
Those are important too, Otto. It's not an either or situation. UBI can complement existing programs. It can provide a safety net while people are retraining or pursuing education. It's about creating a multi-pronged approach.
Exactly. And UBI could actually make those other programs more effective. If someone doesn't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, they're going to be much more receptive to job training or education.
I guess that makes sense. But what about automation? Everyone's worried about robots taking all the jobs. Is UBI just a way to prepare for a jobless future?
Automation is a huge factor, and UBI could be a crucial tool for managing the economic disruption that it causes. It provides a buffer for those who lose their jobs to robots and allows them to retrain for new roles.
And it also allows people to pursue other types of work that might not be traditionally valued, like caregiving, community organizing, or artistic endeavors. These are all essential to a thriving society, but they often don't pay well. UBI could help fill that gap.
So we're talking about a world where people are artists and community organizers instead of, engineers and doctors.
No, not instead of. It's about creating a society where people have the freedom to pursue their passions and contribute in meaningful ways, regardless of whether those contributions are traditionally valued by the market.
Think about it. UBI could unlock incredible potential. People could start businesses, invent new technologies, and solve pressing social problems, all without the fear of financial ruin. That's the kind of urban renewal I'm talking about, a renewal driven by human ingenuity and creativity.
All right. You're painting a pretty picture. But what about the politics of this? How do you get something like UBI passed in the current political climate? It seems like a non-starter.
That's the million-dollar question. It requires building broad coalitions, educating the public, and demonstrating the potential benefits of UBI in a clear and compelling way. It also means addressing the legitimate concerns that people have about cost, implementation, and potential unintended consequences.
And framing it in a way that resonates with different values. For some, it's about economic justice and reducing inequality. For others, it's about promoting individual freedom and opportunity. And for others still, it's about preparing for the future of work.
So basically, you have to sell it to everyone at once, which sounds impossible.
It's a challenge, no doubt, but it's not impossible. We've seen other seemingly radical ideas become mainstream over time. Think about same-sex marriage or universal healthcare. It takes time, effort, and a lot of persistence.
And it starts with conversations like this one. By unpacking the complexities of UBI, addressing the concerns, and exploring the potential benefits, we can move closer to a more equitable and sustainable future for our cities.
Okay, I'm still not completely sold, but you've definitely given me some things to think about. Maybe this UBI thing isn't as crazy as I initially thought.
That's all we can ask for Otto. To keep an open mind and engage in a thoughtful discussion. The future of our cities depends on it.
Absolutely. And that future, I believe, hinges on our ability to provide a foundation of economic security for all. So thank you both for this stimulating conversation. It's clear there's a lot to unpack, but these discussions are a great start. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to UBI Unplugged. Until next time.
Yep, until next time.
Goodbye, everyone.
Before we sign off, there are a few tangentially related things that have been on my mind. I was reading about Trump's tariffs and how they're supposed to be reciprocal, but the way they're calculated seems really flawed. It made me think about how UBI could help mitigate the consequences of these kinds of disruptive trade policies.
Oh, the tariffs. Yeah, I saw some economists were pretty uncomfortable with how their research was being used to justify them. The whole thing seems messy.
Messy is an understatement. And the market reaction was pretty negative too. It makes you wonder if there's a better way to approach trade imbalances.
Exactly. And that's where UBI comes back in. If tariffs lead to job losses or higher prices, a guaranteed income could provide a safety net for those who are most affected. It wouldn't solve the underlying trade issues, but it could cushion the blow.
So you're saying UBI is like a buffer against bad policy.
It could be, but we have to be careful about relying on UBI to fix problems caused by other policies. It's more effective to have sound policies in the first place.
Of course, but realistically, policies aren't always sound, and even the best policies can have unintended consequences. UBI provides a layer of protection in a complex and uncertain world.
I still don't know how you pay for all of this. I saw something about the debt ceiling being raised again. Seems like we're just kicking the can down the road.
The debt ceiling is always a political football. And yes, it raises serious questions about fiscal sustainability. We need to have a serious conversation about spending priorities.
And revenue sources. We need to consider progressive taxation, closing tax loopholes, and potentially even exploring new forms of taxation like a carbon tax or a wealth tax.
Wealth tax? That's going to be a tough sell.
It is. But the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few is a growing problem, and it's contributing to inequality and social unrest. We need to explore all options for addressing it.
And if we're serious about urban renewal, we need to invest in our communities. That means not just UBI, but also affordable housing, quality education, and access to healthcare. It's a holistic approach.
Okay, holistic, another buzzword. But I get your point. It's not just about giving people money, it's about creating a system that supports them.
Exactly. And that system needs to be fair, equitable, and sustainable. It's a tall order, but it's worth striving for.
And that's the conversation we need to keep having. So thanks again for joining me, both of you. It's been a thought-provoking discussion. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more UBI Unplugged.
All right, see you next time.
Goodbye.
Oh, one last thing. Sarah, you mentioned the study framing UBI as a simple solution for mental well-being. I agree that's a problematic simplification. The positive effects need to be considered in the context of other economic and social policies.
Precisely. We can't just look at UBI in isolation. How does it interact with existing welfare programs? What are the implications for different income groups? A nuanced approach is essential.
Nuance. That's what's missing from most political discussions, isn't it?
Definitely. And the study also didn't fully address the potential for job displacement due to automation. That's a huge concern that needs more research.
Absolutely. How does UBI function as a safety net in the face of widespread technological unemployment? That's a question we need to answer.
So robots taking our jobs and UBI saving the day sounds like a sci-fi movie.
It might sound like science fiction, but it's a very real possibility. And we need to be prepared for it.
And let's not forget the potential for increased social inequities. If UBI recipients are disproportionately from wealthier backgrounds, it could actually exacerbate existing disparities.
So the rich get richer, even with UBI? That's depressing.
It's a risk, but we can mitigate it by targeting UBI to those who need it most and by implementing policies that address systemic inequalities.
And we need to look at how UBI recipients are using their savings. Are they investing in their communities or just hoarding the money? That's going to have a big impact on the overall effectiveness of the program.
Okay, so we need to be financial advisors too. This is getting complicated.
It is complicated, but that's why we need smart policies and robust oversight to ensure that UBI is actually achieving its goals.
And we need to be constantly evaluating the long-term effects of UBI. A 3-year study isn't enough. We need to track people over decades to see how it's really impacting their lives.
All right, so more studies, more oversight, more everything. Sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but it's worth it if we can create a more just and equitable society. Thanks again, everyone. This has been great.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for clearing some things up, I suppose. Still have my doubts, but at least I have more to think about now.
That's progress. And to our listeners, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep engaging in these important conversations. Until next time on UBI Unplugged.